the transport shuttle descended through the purple atmosphere of Kepler Prime, carrying the most important cargo in the galaxy. Princess Zara of the Altarian Empire pressed her face against the viewport, watching the alien world grow larger beneath them. Her heart pounded with nervous energy, but her expression remained calm and composed. She had trained for this moment her entire life. The war between the Altarian Empire and the human coalition had raged for 3 years. Millions had died on both sides. Entire star systems lay in ruins. The galaxy teetered on the edge of complete destruction. When the human coalition proposed a marriage alliance to end the bloodshed, Zara had volunteered immediately. Peace was worth any personal sacrifice. "Your Highness, we are approaching the landing platform," announced Captain Vex, her personal guard. The blue-skinned Altarian officer looked uncomfortable. Like many in the Empire, he thought humans were primitive barbarians who had somehow stumbled upon advanced technology. Zara smoothed her ceremonial robes and checked her appearance in the mirror. She was considered beautiful by Altarian standards, with silver hair that flowed like liquid metal, and eyes that shifted color with her emotions. Right now, they were a deep violet, reflecting her anxiety. The shuttle touched down with barely a whisper. Through the viewport, Zara could see the human delegation waiting on the platform. They looked so strange compared to her people. No scales, no natural armor, just soft pink skin and hair in various shades. They seemed so fragile, so vulnerable. The shuttle doors hissed open. Zara took a deep breath and stepped onto the platform. The gravity here was slightly heavier than on her homeworld, and the air had a different taste. But she had prepared for this. Her diplomatic training had covered every detail about human customs and biology. A tall human man stepped forward from the group. He moved with quiet confidence, his dark hair neat, and his clothes simple but well-made. His eyes were brown, a color that seemed warm and honest. This had to be Marcus Chen, the human she was meant to marry. "Your Highness," Marcus said, bowing respectfully. His voice was deeper than she had expected, with a gentle quality that surprised her. "Welcome to Kepler Prime. I am honored to meet you." Zara inclined her head gracefully. "Commander Chen, the honor is mine. I hope this union will bring peace to our peoples." As they spoke, Zara studied her future husband. The intelligence reports had told her the basic facts. Marcus Chen was 32 years old, a former military officer who had distinguished himself in several battles against her people. He had agreed to this marriage as part of the peace negotiations, but the reports had not captured the quiet strength she sensed in him, or the way his eyes seemed to see everything around them. The ceremony was held in the main hall of the human embassy. Representatives from both governments watched as Zara and Marcus exchanged vows according to both Altarian and human customs. The words felt strange in her mouth, but she spoke them with conviction. This marriage was not about love, it was about ending a war. After the ceremony, there was a reception with formal speeches and diplomatic pleasantries. Zara played her part perfectly, smiling and making conversation with human officials. But she found herself watching Marcus throughout the evening. He seemed genuinely interested in learning about Altarian culture, asking thoughtful questions about her homeworld and her people. "Your Highness," Marcus said during a quiet moment between speeches, "I want you to know that I understand this is difficult for you. You have given up everything for peace. I will do my best to make this arrangement work." Zara was touched by his consideration. Most political marriages in the Empire were cold, business-like affairs. But Marcus seemed to genuinely care about her comfort and feelings. "Thank you, Commander," she replied. "I hope we can at least become friends." Marcus smiled, and for the first time since arriving, Zara felt a spark of hope. Perhaps this marriage would not be as terrible as she had feared. Over the following weeks, they settled into a routine on Kepler Prime. The planet served as neutral territory, where representatives from both governments could work on the details of the peace treaty. Zara and Marcus lived in separate wings of the embassy, maintaining proper diplomatic protocol while their peoples hammered out trade agreements and territorial boundaries. Slowly, they began to know each other. Marcus was intelligent and well-read, with a dry sense of humor that made Zara laugh despite herself. He was also surprisingly gentle for a military commander. When she mentioned missing the gardens of her homeworld, he arranged for a greenhouse to be built where she could grow Alterian plants. "You did not have to do this," Zara said as they walked through the new greenhouse together. The familiar sense of home brought tears to her eyes. "I wanted to," Marcus replied simply. "You have sacrificed so much for peace. The least I can do is help you feel comfortable here." But as the weeks passed, disturbing reports began to reach them. Several fringe groups on both sides opposed the peace treaty. Alterian hardliners called Zara a traitor for marrying a human. Human extremists demanded that the coalition continue fighting until the empire was completely destroyed. The first attack came without warning. A group of Alterian rebels, calling themselves the Pure Blood Alliance, launched a surprise assault on a human research station in the Centauri system. 47 humans died, including 12 children at a school colony. The news reached Kepler Prime during breakfast. Marcus read the report in silence, his face growing hard. Zara watched the warmth disappear from his eyes, replaced by something cold and calculating. "I am sorry," she said quietly. "These rebels do not represent my people. The Empire condemns this attack." Marcus nodded absently, but Zara could see that something had changed in him. The gentleman she had been getting to know was gone, replaced by someone she did not recognize. Within hours, Marcus was in communication with Human Coalition Military Command. Zara tried to speak with him several times, but he was locked in planning sessions with his staff. When she finally managed to corner him in his office that evening, she barely recognized the man she had married. "Marcus, please," she said, "do not let this destroy the peace process. We can work together to stop the extremists on both sides." Marcus looked up from the tactical displays covering his desk. His eyes were tired, but there was steel in them now. "Zara, I appreciate what you are trying to do. But you do not understand humans like you think you do. What I won, you not 18. What do you mean?" Marcus stood and walked to the window overlooking the embassy grounds. "Your people have studied human military tactics and technology. You know we are effective fighters, but you do not understand what drives us." Zara felt a chill run down her spine. "What are you saying? Those children who died today," Marcus said quietly. "They were just starting their lives. They had dreams and hopes and futures ahead of them. The rebels who killed them think humans are weak because we value peace. They are about to learn how wrong they are." The next morning, Marcus was gone. He had taken a fast courier ship back to human space during the night, leaving only a brief message for Zara. He promised to return when his duty was complete, but he would not stand by while extremists murdered innocents. Zara felt betrayed and confused. The man she had married, the gentle soul who built her a greenhouse, had vanished. In his place was someone she did not know, someone whose eyes had turned cold as winter stars. Captain Vex found her standing in the greenhouse, surrounded by the plants that reminded her of home. "Your Highness," he said carefully, "perhaps it is time to return to the Empire. This human has shown his true nature. The marriage was a mistake." Zara shook her head. "No, the peace is too important. I will wait for him to return." But as she stood among the flowering vines Marcus had helped her plant, Zara wondered if the gentle man she had begun to care for was gone forever. The reports from the war zone would soon show her exactly what kind of warrior her husband truly was. News of Marcus Chen's return to active duty spread through human space like wildfire. The diplomatic husband, as the media had dubbed him, was coming back to war, but those who had served under him before knew the truth. Marcus Chen was not just any commander. He was the ghost of Titan, the man who had single-handedly turned the tide at 3 major battles against impossible odds. Admiral Sarah Morrison welcomed Marcus aboard the flagship Defiant with barely concealed relief. The Human Coalition fleet had been struggling against increasingly bold Alterian rebel attacks. The Pure Blood Alliance had grown from a few extremist cells into a full military force, armed with stolen Imperial warships and weapons. "It's good to have you back, Marcus," Morrison said as they stood on the bridge. "Though I have to ask, How is married life treating you? Marcus looked out at the assembled fleet through the main viewport. 200 human warships hung in space around them, ready for battle. But his mind was back on Kepler Prime, thinking of silver hair and violet eyes. The princess is remarkable, he said quietly. She gave up everything for peace. I will not let these rebels destroy what she sacrificed for. Morrison nodded. She had read the intelligence reports about Princess Zara. The Alterian royal had impressed even human diplomats with her dedication to ending the war. What are your orders, sir? Asked Commander Torres, the ship's tactical officer. Marcus moved to the central command station and activated the holographic display. Star charts filled the air around them, showing the current positions of rebel forces throughout the sector. The Pure Blood Alliance thinks they are fighting primitive humans who got lucky with technology, Marcus said. His voice was calm, but there was something predatory in his tone. They are about to learn what 3 years of war has taught us about their tactics, their technology, and their weaknesses. The first strike came at dawn, ship time. The rebel stronghold at Vega Station had been considered impregnable. Built inside a hollowed-out asteroid, it was protected by overlapping shield generators and automated defense platforms. The Alliance had been using it as a base to launch attacks on human colonies. Marcus approached the problem like a chess master. Instead of a direct assault, he sent small human ships to harass the outer defenses, while the main fleet remained hidden behind a nearby moon. The rebels responded exactly as he predicted, sending their fast attack ships to pursue what they thought were fleeing humans. When the rebel ships were far from the station, Marcus sprang his trap. The main fleet emerged from behind the moon and launched a devastating barrage at the now weakened defenses. But this was not the random destruction of conventional warfare. Every shot was precisely calculated, targeting specific systems in a sequence designed to collapse the entire defensive network. How did he know their shield harmonics? Whispered a young ensign as they watched the enemy barriers flicker and fail. He fought them for 3 years, Torres replied. He learned. The station fell in 17 minutes. The rebel ships, racing back to defend their base, found themselves caught between Marcus's main fleet and the human ships they had been chasing. It was a perfect pincer movement that left them with no escape route. But Marcus was not finished. As the surviving rebels tried to surrender, he opened communication channels to broadcast a message across all frequencies. This is Commander Marcus Chen of the Human Coalition. His voice carried to every rebel ship and base within 50 light-years. You murdered children at Centauri. You think humans are weak because we choose peace over war. Let me educate you about human nature. What followed was a campaign that would be studied in military academies for generations. Marcus did not simply defeat the rebels. He dismantled their entire organization with surgical precision. Using intelligence gathered from captured ships, he tracked down every rebel base, every supply depot, every hiding place they had established. The rebels had expected human anger. They had prepared for human vengeance, but they had not expected human patience. Marcus spent weeks studying their communication patterns, their supply routes, their personnel files. When he finally moved, it was with the methodical efficiency of a predator that had been watching its prey. At the Kepler mining facility, rebels had taken 300 human civilians hostage. Traditional military doctrine called for either a siege or a risky assault. Marcus chose a third option. He used microdrones to map every corridor and room in the facility, then deployed a knockout gas that affected Alterian physiology but was harmless to humans. The hostages were freed without a single casualty. At the Troy Nebula, a rebel fleet tried to ambush human merchant ships. Marcus arrived with a smaller force and appeared to fall into their trap. But he had studied Alterian tactical doctrine extensively during his marriage negotiations. He knew they would position their ships in a specific formation. When they did, he was ready with countermeasures that turned their own tactics against them. The rebel commander, General Thax of the Pure Blood Alliance, sent increasingly desperate messages trying to goad Marcus into making mistakes. He called humans cowards for using advanced technology instead of fighting with honor. He questioned Marcus's courage for hiding behind automated weapons systems. Marcus's response was simple. He sent a single ship to Thax's flagship and challenged the general to single combat. When Thax accepted, Expecting to face a soft human diplomat in personal battle, he found himself fighting a man who had trained in hand-to-hand combat with the best warriors from a dozen species. The fight lasted 3 minutes. Marcus did not kill Thax, but he left the general with a clear understanding that humans could be just as dangerous in close combat as they were in ship-to-ship warfare. News of the campaign reached every corner of the galaxy. The Altarian rebels, who had seemed unstoppable just weeks before, were being systematically destroyed by a single human commander. But it was not the victories that impressed observers. It was the way Marcus fought. He followed every rule of warfare. He treated prisoners with respect. He avoided civilian casualties with almost supernatural precision, but he was utterly relentless in hunting down those responsible for the Centauri massacre. It was warfare conducted with the calm efficiency of a surgeon and the inexorable determination of a force of nature. On Kepler Prime, Princess Zara watched the reports with growing amazement and horror. The gentle man who had built her a greenhouse was systematically dismantling an entire military organization. She had known Marcus was a former commander, but she had not understood what that meant. "Your Highness," Captain Vex said during one of their daily briefings, "the human is more dangerous than we realized. Perhaps you should reconsider this marriage alliance." Zara studied the tactical displays showing Marcus's latest victory. The rebels had tried to set up an ambush using captured human ships. Marcus had seen through the deception and turned it into another trap for his enemies. It was brilliant and terrifying. "No," she said finally. "This is exactly why the peace treaty is so important. Look what he can accomplish when he chooses war. Imagine what he might build if he chooses peace." But privately, Zara wondered if she truly knew the man she had married. The reports painted a picture of someone who could think like his enemies, who could predict their moves and counter them with frightening efficiency. This was not the gentle soul who had asked about her favorite flowers. This was something else entirely. The campaign against the Pure Blood Alliance ended at the Sigma Draconis system. The surviving rebels had gathered their remaining forces for a final, desperate battle. They outnumbered Marcus's fleet 2-1 and had taken position in an asteroid field that would limit his tactical options. Marcus approached the battle with the same methodical patience he had shown throughout the campaign. Instead of attacking immediately, he positioned his ships around the asteroid field and waited. For 3 days, he simply watched and studied the rebel positions. When he finally moved, it was with devastating effectiveness. Using precisely calculated gravitational bombs, he shifted the orbits of key asteroids, turning the rebels' defensive positions into death traps. Ships that had been hidden behind massive rocks suddenly found themselves exposed to human weapons fire. Others were crushed when asteroids collided, according to Marcus's careful calculations. The battle was over in 4 hours. The Pure Blood Alliance ceased to exist as a military force. But Marcus's final message to the survivors demonstrated why humans had become the dominant military power in this sector of the galaxy. "You are free to return to your homes," he broadcast to the defeated rebels. "The human coalition does not seek conquest or revenge. We seek only peace and the right to exist without fear. But remember what you have learned here. Humans are not weak because we choose diplomacy over warfare. We are strong enough to choose." 3 weeks later, Marcus returned to Kepler Prime. Zara waited for him in the embassy's main hall, her heart pounding with uncertainty. The man who walked through those doors moved with the same quiet confidence she remembered. But there was something different about him now. "Something harder, Your Highness," Marcus said, bowing respectfully. "I apologize for leaving without proper notice. The situation required immediate action." Zara studied his face, looking for some sign of the gentle soul she had begun to care for. "The galaxy has been watching your campaign, Commander. They are calling you the God of War." Marcus's expression did not change, but she saw something flicker in his eyes. "Regret? Sadness? War is sometimes necessary, Princess, but it is never something to celebrate." As they stood facing each other in the embassy hall, Zara realized that her marriage had become something neither of them had expected. She had wed a diplomat and discovered a warrior, but perhaps, she thought as she looked into his tired eyes, The man she was falling in love with was both. The weeks following Marcus's return were unlike anything Zara had experienced. The man who came back from the rebel campaign was both the gentle soul she had begun to love and the ruthless strategist the galaxy now feared. Watching him transition between these two aspects of his nature was like observing a master actor change roles without removing his costume. During diplomatic meetings, Marcus was patient and thoughtful, carefully weighing every word to avoid giving offense to either side. He spent hours reviewing trade agreements and territorial boundaries, making small adjustments that would benefit both humans and Alterians. His suggestions were always reasonable, always fair, but Zara also saw him in the war room, coordinating with coalition forces to track down the remaining rebel cells. When he worked on military strategy, his entire demeanor changed. His movements became more precise. His voice took on a commanding tone, and his eyes grew sharp as laser cutters. The transformation was so complete that Zara sometimes felt she was watching a different person entirely. "You are troubled by something," Marcus observed one evening as they walked through her greenhouse. The Alterian plants had flourished under his care while he was away, tended by the embassy staff according to detailed instructions he had left. Zara touched the petals of a flowering vine that reminded her of home. "I am trying to understand who I married," she said honestly. "The reports from your campaign. They speak of someone I do not recognize." Marcus was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was softer than she had heard it since his return. "My people have a saying," he said. "The tree that would grow peace must have roots in war. I am what I am because of what humanity has had to become to survive." "But the way you fought," Zara pressed. "It was like you could see into their minds. Like you knew what they would do before they did it." Marcus stopped walking and turned to face her. In the soft light of the greenhouse, his features looked younger, more vulnerable. "I studied your people for 3 years of war, Zara. Not just your military tactics or your technology. I learned how Alterians think, how your culture shapes your decisions. When I fought the rebels, I was not fighting strangers. I was fighting people whose motivations I understood completely." The revelation sent a chill through Zara. "You studied us like laboratory specimens." No," Marcus said firmly. "I studied you like people I hope to make peace with someday. Every battle taught me something about Alterian nature that I could use for diplomacy instead of war. Your rebels made the mistake of thinking like typical Alterian military commanders. They followed the patterns I had learned to recognize." Zara began to understand. Marcus had not simply defeated the rebels through superior firepower or technology. He had outthought them by understanding their culture better than they understood his. "Is that what you are doing with me?" she asked quietly. "Studying me?" Marcus reached out and gently took her hand. His touch was warm and real. Nothing like the calculating predator she had seen in the battle reports. "At first, yes," he admitted. "But somewhere along the way, that changed. You are not a diplomatic problem to be solved, Zara. You are the most remarkable person I have ever met." Before she could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the embassy. Emergency lights bathed the greenhouse in red as Captain Vex's voice echoed through the communication system. "Your Highness, Commander Chen, we have a situation. Long-range sensors are detecting an unknown fleet approaching the system. They are not responding to hails." "Friend." Marcus and Zara rushed to the command center, where the embassy staff was frantically trying to identify the approaching ships. The main display showed sensor readings from the edge of the system. 20 large vessels of unknown configuration were moving toward Kepler Prime at high speed. "Have you ever seen ship designs like these?" Marcus asked as he studied the tactical data. Zara shook her head. The vessels were unlike anything in the Alterian Imperial Fleet or the human coalition navy. They were massive, heavily armed, and built for war. "Incoming transmission," reported the communications officer. "They are broadcasting on all frequencies." The main screen flickered to life, showing the bridge of the lead ship. The figure standing before the camera was humanoid, but clearly not human or Alterian. Its skin was a dark green color, and its eyes glowed with an inner light. When it spoke, its voice carried the authority of absolute command. "I am war leader Krenth of the Vorthan Empire," the alien said. We have come to claim this system and end the pathetic peace attempt between these weak species. Prepare for conquest. The transmission cut off, leaving the command center in stunned silence. Marcus moved to the tactical station and began rapidly entering commands. "Who are the Vorthans?" Zara asked. "I have never heard of them." "Neither have we," Marcus replied, but his fingers never stopped working on the tactical console. "But they are moving in formation patterns designed for planetary assault. This is not a diplomatic mission." Captain Vex stepped forward, his blue face pale with worry. "Commander, the embassy staff numbers only 50 people. We have no military ships, no defensive weapons. Against 20 warships, we cannot fight." Marcus looked up from the console, and Zara saw the transformation happen again. The gentle husband vanished, replaced by the tactical genius who had dismantled the Pure Blood Alliance. "Captain, how long until the nearest coalition fleet can reach us?" 18 hours at best, sir." "And the Imperial fleet?" 16 hours, assuming they respond immediately to our distress call." Marcus nodded grimly. "The Vorthans will be here in 6 hours. We are on our own." Over the next hour, Marcus transformed the embassy from a diplomatic facility into a fortress. He had the staff move all essential personnel to the underground levels, while he and a small team worked to activate defensive systems that most people did not know existed. "You prepared for this," Zara realized as she watched him coordinate the defenses. "I prepared for every possibility," Marcus replied. "When you are responsible for peace, you must also be prepared for war." The hidden weapon systems that emerged from beneath the embassy grounds were impressive but clearly inadequate against 20 warships. Marcus had particle cannons, missile batteries, and energy shields. But they were designed to protect against ground assault, not orbital bombardment. "This will not be enough," Captain Vex observed as they watched the defenses come online. "No," Marcus agreed. "But it will buy us time to try something else." He activated a communication console and began broadcasting on a frequency Zara did not recognize. When someone answered, she was surprised to hear an Alterian voice. "General Thax," Marcus said calmly. The rebel leader who Marcus had defeated in single combat appeared on the screen. Thax looked older and more tired than in the intelligence photos, but his eyes still burned with defiance. "The great human warrior calls for help?" Thax said mockingly. "How the mighty have fallen. General, I am transmitting sensor data about an alien fleet approaching Kepler Prime. They have declared their intention to conquer this system and eliminate both our species. I am offering you a choice." Marcus sent the tactical information about the Vorthan ships. Thax studied the data, and his mocking expression slowly changed to one of concern. "These ships are built for total war," Thax said finally. "They show no interest in conquest or negotiation. Only destruction. The Pure Blood Alliance wanted to continue fighting humans because you believed we were your true enemies," Marcus continued. "But now we face a threat that wants to destroy both our peoples. You can help me stop them, or you can watch from hiding while they burn both our worlds." There was a long pause. When Thax spoke again, his voice had lost its mocking tone. "What do you propose, human?" For the next 3 hours, Marcus worked with his former enemy to coordinate a defense of Kepler Prime. Thax still commanded 6 ships and several hundred experienced fighters. Combined with the embassy's defensive systems, they might be able to hold out until the main fleets arrived. Zara watched in amazement as Marcus and the rebel leader planned their strategy. These two had been trying to kill each other just weeks before, but now they worked together with the efficiency of longtime partners. "You trust him," she observed during a brief break in the planning. "I understand him," Marcus corrected. "Thax is a true believer who thinks humans are a threat to Alterian purity. But he is also a soldier who recognizes a greater threat when he sees it." When the Vorthan fleet entered orbit around Kepler Prime, they found a very different situation than they had expected. Instead of a defenseless diplomatic facility, they faced a coordinated defense involving human technology and Alterian tactical expertise. The battle that followed was unlike anything in recorded history. Marcus commanded the overall strategy while Thax led the space-based attacks. The embassy's weapon systems targeted Vorthan ships that came too close to the planet while the rebel fleet used hit-and-run tactics to disrupt their formations. But the most remarkable aspect of the battle was the way Marcus fought. He did not simply defend against the Vorthan assault. He studied their tactics, learned their patterns, and began to predict their moves with the same precision he had shown against the rebels. "They fight like the ancient Alterian battle kings," he told Thax during a brief lull. "Honor-bound, rigid, predictable. They expect their enemies to be afraid." "What do you recommend?" Thax asked. "We show them what they are really facing." Marcus coordinated a series of attacks designed to demonstrate both human adaptability and Alterian courage. When the Vorthans tried to use their superior numbers to overwhelm the defenders, they found their targets had vanished, only to reappear behind them. When they attempted to break through with brute force, they met precisely aimed fire that targeted their most vulnerable systems. The turning point came when Marcus gambled everything on a single desperate strategy. He had Thax's ships pretend to retreat in disorder while he powered down the embassy's defenses. To the Vorthans, it looked like the defenders had finally broken. The enemy fleet moved in for the killing blow, concentrating their ships for a final bombardment. That was when Marcus revealed his true plan. The retreat had been a ruse to draw the Vorthans into range of a weapon he had been hiding. The embassy's main reactor had been rigged to overload in a controlled fusion burst. When the Vorthan fleet gathered in close formation above the facility, Marcus triggered the explosion. The blast was powerful enough to disable half their ships and destroy their flagship entirely. As the surviving Vorthans fell back in confusion, the long-range sensors detected new arrivals at the edge of the system. Both the human coalition fleet and the Alterian Imperial Navy had responded to the distress calls. The battle for Kepler Prime was over. In the aftermath, as rescue teams helped evacuate the embassy and repair crews worked on the damaged ships, Zara found Marcus sitting alone in what remained of her greenhouse. The fusion blast had shattered the structure, leaving the Alterian plants scattered and dying. "I am sorry about your garden," Marcus said without looking up. Zara sat down beside him among the ruined plants. "It was necessary." "Was it?" Marcus asked. "I destroyed something beautiful to win a battle." "How is that different from what the rebels did?" Zara took his hand in both of hers. "Because you did it to protect life, not destroy it. Because you fought alongside your enemies when a greater threat appeared. Because you chose to save both our peoples instead of just your own." Marcus finally looked at her, and she saw exhaustion and pain in his eyes. "I am tired of being a warrior, Zara. I want to be the man who builds greenhouses instead of the one who burns them down." "Then be both," Zara said simply. "The galaxy needs warriors who dream of peace and gardeners who can fight when necessary." "I did not marry you despite what you are, Marcus. I married you because of everything you are." As they sat together in the ruins of the greenhouse, watching the sunrise through the shattered dome, Zara finally understood the truth about the man she had wed. She had married him to achieve peace, then watched him fight with the ferocity of a god of war. But she had also seen him weep over destroyed flowers and risk everything to save former enemies. Marcus Chen was not just a warrior or just a diplomat. He was proof that humans could be both gentle and terrible, depending on what the situation required. And as the galaxy began to rebuild after the Vorthan crisis, Zara knew that this combination of strength and compassion would be exactly what was needed to build a lasting peace. The marriage that had begun as a political necessity had become something far more important. It was a bridge between species, a symbol of cooperation, and proof that even former enemies could become family when they faced their fears together. In the months that followed, as they worked to rebuild not just the embassy but the entire framework for galactic peace, Zara would often remember that moment in the ruined greenhouse. She had seen her husband as a god of war, but she had also seen him as a man who mourned for dying flowers. Both aspects were equally true, equally necessary, and equally part of the remarkable human she had learned to love.